right, my name is Charles Sterling, and I am so honored that Sharon and the rest of the UK folks would actually have me represent them in the Global Platform Summit. I want to actually thank Kunal for actually creating this Global Bootcamp. I said summit, and it was actually the bootcamp. Sorry, it's still 6:05 a.m., and I've been up for an hour already, so it's a little bit early for me. And my topic that I actually presented is positively one of my favorites, is actually how do I actually start putting the Power Platform together to actually solve real problems. Matter of fact, this demos I've got, most of these demos are actually from people's issues they brought to me, or at least not issues, opportunities and things that they want to solve. So these are real world examples. And as you saw in the description, I get to show you something that we're working on that we're going to be shipping in the next 2 months-ish. So Sujata and Arnav, if you're listening, those are the ones that are actually working on the feature. Thank you for letting me show you their feature, your feature, and it's going to be awesome. So with that, rather than actually walking through the agenda, I've only got 45 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get right into the individual slides. So let's see if I can actually get you to advanced. Some people have problems with Teams, and some people have problems with PowerPoint, apparently. Where's my mouse? Oh, there it is. There it is. This is going to work. This is going to work so well. Okay. So in our internal user group here at Microsoft, one of our TSPs, technical specialists, product specialists, anyways, came in and said, hey, their customer is using a Power BI report, and what they want to do is go ahead and just add rows to their data set. So, right, they're looking at a report and they've got, I don't know, maybe orders, for instance. That's a common one. And what they want to do is just want to add a new order, or they want to add a new customer, etc. And they saw that there is actually this add rows to data set action item. Well, that makes sense, right? It is actually add rows to data set. That's got to be the right one. It turns out it may not be. So, I want to do our audience participation. I hadn't realized this is live meeting, but that's okay. If you guys want to chat in there, what does this do and what are its limitations? I'm actually going to show you. So let's go ahead and go in. And again, I'm a little bit out of sorts because I actually don't have the right browsers up, but we're going to figure this out real fast. So what we're going to do is we'll just log into powerbi.com. And normally I actually do all of these demos in a prod tenant. This one, because we're actually going to show you some preview features, I am going to do out of a Microsoft tenant. So the experience might be a little bit different because we actually tend to get builds a little bit sooner than what get pushed out. So it's going to look a little bit different. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to, I think I actually use a workspace called Chaz. So we're going to go to my Chaz workspace. And again, probably shouldn't be bleeding through all of these workspace names. So let's not record those, shall we? It's between friends. And I think I actually put that particular sample in my customer profitability sample dashboard. Yeah, there we go. And what you're going to see is I actually have these tiles from a report called Scoreboard. And if I go in, and clearly Sharon deserves a 10. Actually, somebody, David A, actually got a 20. So Sharon deserves a 50. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say submit, and you actually should see that the count of score should go up to 13. The last score is 50, and the average score has gone way up to 10 because of, and Sharon, with her amazing, MC hosts, bounces all the way up to here. What did I do? How did I do that? As you saw when I came in, I kind of give away some of the secret sauce. I'm actually using Poweraps right here, all right? So this is a Powerapp. But what is this doing, and how is this related back into that flow task that I'm talking about? Well, it turns out, I'm going to go ahead and bring up flow. I have no idea which environment it's going to come up in. I'm actually pushing into what's called a REST-based data set. REST-based data set. When I go down here and do get data, or if I actually do that in Power BI desktop and I do get data, those are actually using the mashup engine. Those are not REST-based data sets. They're quite different as far as how they're stored underneath of the covers. And the task that I showed in Power Automate, right? So if I go out here, I think actually this is one right here that I created for the Nigeria folks yesterday. And if I edit this, add rows of data set, will only look at data sets of type REST base. And there's the one that you actually are probably familiar with is the streaming data set. So you'll see that it only sees 3 data sets here, but if I go into, and it's the same workspace, see this? But if I go back in here and I take a look at that workspace and I go to data sets, you'll see that there's all kinds of data sets. So David's is just one of them, and scorecard's another one. The reason being is this one and this one is a streaming data set, which is actually based on the REST-based API. And if I actually want to toggle it from streaming to hybrid, the way you do that is, oh, I chose the wrong one. That's actually one that uses the M language to create it. Well, I chose it. That's okay. I didn't mean to choose that one. I meant to choose a streaming data set. But for time's sake, let's just continue on. But that is actually how you use the task, the Power Automate task for creating rows in a data set. But that one is interesting, is that the data set type needs to be a REST base, which for most cases is going to be a streaming data set. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to my slides. Where are my slides at? Right here. Okay, and we're going to go advance to the next slide. So the next demo that I want to do is probably what most people want to do, which is actually, I want to add rows to my data set, not your data set, right? So it's one that I'm already using. I'm using SQL Server, or I'm using, whatever the case is. I have a report on it. I want to put data into that. Lots and lots of considerations, lots of caveats that you need to think about. But let's go ahead and actually get that working. And actually, I'll talk about some new features there. So if I go back in here, and I should have one called Dataverse, which actually, I have a report called Dataverse. Let's actually open the report. And the name itself should suggest what database, they don't like calling it a database, what data source I'm actually using. And yes, it is using Dataverse. This one is actually using the latest build of that connector, which supports direct query. That is really, really important for this demo, that it supports direct query, because it gives a much better experience for this interaction. Direct query will do real time. It will do near real time. Daniel Christian actually put out a great video on how you can get it more real time, but it's still not real time. So in this one, let's go ahead and edit this. And I should actually have a Dataverse done. So let's go back in here, go to my Dataverse done. I'll show you it working. Let's go back in the reading view so we can actually go out and take a look at it. And here is that report, and you'll see that I've got a Ferrari, a Surface Book, a Surface 7, a Yoga, and I've got some products or some manufacturers. So let's go ahead and add a new one. So when I saw Sharon last, what were you carrying around? I know that Ginger Grant was carrying some little itty bitty Acer thing. What laptop do you use, Sharon? We'll put it in your laptop.
I'm a Surface laptop, obviously.
Oh, okay, the Surface. And Sharon is always using the greatest. So what's the fastest one I've got there? I've got a Surface 7. So Sharon probably has the Surface 15, right? That would be faster. And of course, everything goes down in price. Nothing goes up in price in this world. So we're going to make it $565. Wouldn't that be awesome if the Surface 15?
That would be awesome. Certainly didn't cost it.
And that one is probably created by a manufacturer called Microsoft. And so Sharon doesn't get a bunch of emails in case I whack my looping structure, because we're going to make some loops out of this in a second. I'll use my email address, so rather than Sharon's. So now, before I hit enter, I have $11,000 in orders. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 orders-ish, and none of them are Surface Book 10. So I want you to notice this number, and this isn't going to change because it's still got Surface, but these are the two titles that are going to change. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And what you should see is that this number goes up $500, and we should now have a Surface 15 down here. We should, honest. If we're not, it's probably because, it's probably just actually, yeah, there. It was the cheap one, and I had it sorted, and it went way down the top. So note to self, if you're going to go out and do this demo, add expensive ones, not cheap models. Now, how did that work? Because it's not a streaming data set. It's not real time, but it just went out and updated a report. And if you ever know anything about Power BI reports, they're positively not, near real time. There is actually a new feature where with direct query, you can actually have it pull, but this didn't pull. This actually just did it on that button. So let's go out and show you how to create that Power App. How does it interact and what is it doing? And then that will bring us to our new feature. And I'll be able to give this some time back, maybe. I don't know. We'll see with the slides and where we go. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into edit mode. And we're going to go into a tab that is not done. And if there's an application there, then we'll just remove it. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and remove it. Like I said, yesterday at 3 a.m., I actually did this for the folks in Nigeria. So David Brown, if you're listening, shout out to you and your user group. Thank you for having me. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a new Poweraps Visual right there, just where that other one was that you saw a minute ago. And now what I want to do is I want to push data into this. And we already told you that it is using a Dataverse table. So let's go ahead and go to orders and drag over those same ones that we were looking at. We just filled out. We filled out email, I believe it was. Come on. You just haven't woke up. You're like me. You just were a little bit tired. Okay, no problem. And then price was the other one. We're going to need to get rid of those one of those emails, I think. We don't need 2 emails. And what was it? Manufacturer name, probably this one. And name. That's actually the indexed column, so we positively need to have that. And let's go ahead and put this into my environment. If you're a Power BI person, environments are kind of our workspaces, or if you're a PowerApps person, workspaces is their environments. So it depends on the context you're using. And once again, looking at the Microsoft tenant, so I'm going to go ahead and go through and say Chaz. Oh, Chuck's World. Chaz is actually the workspace. Chuck's World is the environment. And we're going to go out and create a brand new application. It looks like I left the TV running downstairs. I wonder if I could Roku into it and turn it off. I don't have my phone. Ooh, probably close the door. Okay, as you see, as I'm talking to myself, what's happening underneath the covers is it's adding the controls for that application. And it actually brought over the data set from there. And I think Microsoft, the email address must have been the first one I grabbed, and we can actually see the rest of those fields. We're not going to use this particular control. I just want to show you those other fields are here as well. And they're live in real time from this Power BI data source, or data set in this case, right? So this is the data set we brought over, and this is actually being rendered. That is pretty cool. Now we are actually not, and the filter context comes through. So if I'd actually gone ahead and surf and brought this down to just Acer computers, I wouldn't actually see all these different rows. I would only see those that actually apply to Acer. So the filter context flows back, I was gonna say back and forth, but it doesn't flow back and forth. It only flows to the Power Apps right now. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get rid of that control. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go to insert, and I'm gonna actually show you in, what time is it? 6:18, let's say 3 minutes, how to actually create this application. We're gonna go out and add an edit form, and the data source is that orders table. Orders, I need to spell orders right. Okay, and by the way, Jesse has a great video on this. I'm gonna do this in like 3 minutes. If you haven't watched Jesse, I think Jesse is the next presenter after lunch. I highly recommend you actually check out her YouTube, subscribe, and watch her video on it. She did it last month. It was last month's video. And now what we're gonna do is go ahead and edit those fields. I certainly don't need created on. That's not one that we're gonna go out and change, but I do want those other ones. So what were they? They were email, that's one. They were manufacturer name, and they were price. Where's price? There's probably other ones I should be adding, but that is enough. So this is actually how I'm going to push data into my my data set. Now in this case, I'm using Dataverse, but there are 400 connectors I could have written back into the underlying data source for my Power BI report. But I want you to think about that. If I actually push it back into some SAP HANA thing that goes to the personal gateway, and I only have 4 refreshes per day, that means 4 divided by 24. It happens every 6 hours if that's the case, your refresh schedule. And I update it in front of them live, and they don't see it updated in the report for 6 hours, is that the experience you want to give? And I don't know, but this is actually architectural decisions that you guys need to think about when you start playing with pushing in data real time to what may not be real-time reports. And we're going to show you how we make it real-time in this case, and that may or may not work for you. Okay, so what we're going to do is say, I need a new row. These are empty rows. I just need to put a placeholder in there. And that is actually called new form. Yeah, there it is. And the form that we brought over, this is subtle, but you'll notice that it put a green box around the form that we just added. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I want to save it. So we're going to go back into icons. We're going to go back into the check, and we're going to go back in and say, submit that data. We now have a place for it, and we're going to do form 1. But the secret sauce here, is the fact that we want to go ahead and say, hey, Power BI, it's time to refresh. So we're going to go out and say, hey, Power BI, and it's time to refresh. Okay. And now, if I go out and save this, and we're going to call this one Cambridge. And you guys actually, I think your logos are like a darky blue, so I'm going to use that darky blue color. And we're going to go out and hit save. Now, when I hit save and I go back to Power BI, what you should see the second it actually gets published into the service is that the application starts rendering right here. So it's going to take a second because we're a little bit ahead of time, but it's going to signal the service that says, hey, this application's done. Honest. Yeah, it's just taking a little while. There we go. Come on. Ah, there we go. And you'll see that it's that darky blue. It's our Cambridge application. And just like I did before, we're actually going to be able to hit the checkbox and add a Surface 15 now because it's got one better than it was last time. My email address and the manufacturer name is Microsoft. And oops, apparently I'm going to have one on a period. Actually, let's not do that. I don't need the dirty up that data set. And then the price, as we decided before, needs to be between. It needs to be over $1,000. That way it shows up. So let's do it. This one is $2,000. Make it easy. So you'll see that I don't have one at $2,000, or no, I don't. It's in between these two. So when I hit plus, what we should see is that these visuals, it's really, really subtle, you probably can't see, are actually refreshing right now. There's a little circle right here that says I'm working, check, I'm working real hard. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to update, and there's my Surface 15 wherever it went out at $2,000. It just got added. Surface 16, there it is. It's right here. So this is actually how I cause a refresh. This is how I put data all the way back in the underlying data source. And some of the considerations that you need, and in this case, it's actually showing a brand new feature of using Dataverse with direct queries. So how did I create that? When you go into Power BI Desktop and you do get data, there's a new checkbox that says direct query, and it's just that subtle. You don't need to worry a whole lot more than that, but the direct query part means that refresh will go out and actually do a round trip. You don't have to schedule it with a gateway, and I can make it refresh anytime I want. So that is very, very cool. Okay, let's go back to the slides and see what else I wanted to cover, and we'll move forward from there. Okay, refreshing and refreshing and refreshing. So I've told you a couple times, oh no, I haven't actually, we haven't looked at this one. So right here, there is a brand new refresh data set action in Power Automate. And over here, there is, as I showed you, a Power BI integration refresh method. Does anybody know what these are doing different? And again, it's hard to do this with a live meeting instead of a regular Teams meeting because you guys can't unmute, and chatting is a little bit awkward. But let me just go ahead and tell you. As the name suggests, this is actually only refreshing the data set, meaning if I was talking about the SAP HANA thing and I issued this flow, manually triggered it, and I issued the refresh, it would say, hey, gateway, do your job, update. And if you look at the documentations, a gateway refresh can take up to 2 hours. I think my camera's on, 2 hours. So I said, go. What you may not want to do is issue a whole bunch of those within 1 hour if you know that they're going to take 2 hours, because they're just going to queue up and it's going to cause a mess, and your SAP HANA admins are going to probably come looking for you with a gun. And it won't refresh the report anyways, because the report doesn't know that the data set's been updated. This refresh, by contrast, are the visuals, right? This says, hey, visuals, the data set's changed, i.e. this thing is updated. Now it's time for you to go out and dry yourself. You can actually see those in 2 different places. I showed you those data sets. Well, next to the data sets in that workspace, there is actually a little circly thing that says, I want you to refresh data set. And inside of my reports, there's also a refresh there. Now, this is a little disingenuous of me, because the reports themselves also actually try to initiate a data set refresh as well. So if I'm using a direct query refresh, this doesn't just update the visuals. It also actually goes out and causes a direct query data set to refresh. But it's close. That this is actually going to go out and say visuals update. This one actually says data set update. So these are different. And it's important for you guys to think about that. Or if you start seeing weird things like you're using a Power BI tile inside of Powerapps and it seems static, Daniel Christian did a great video. Shouts out to Daniel Christian if you're listening, or if you are friends of Daniel Christian, let him know I did a shout out, where he actually shows you how to put this inside of your Power App to combine it with a visual refresh to actually get your tiles working and updating inside of a Power App. So a Power BI tile inside of a Power App. So go out and check out Daniel Christian's YouTube video. He just did it 3 days ago for the community call. Okay, what's the next one? So let's go out and take a look at my dashboard, and I'll show you this. If you haven't looked at alerts inside of Power BI, they're very cool. What we're going to do is we're going to go back into a dashboard, say, yeah, we want to save that. That's good, because we're going to come back here in a second. And I want to go back into my workspace. We're going to find a dashboard. Let's actually use that same one. I think that one may have an alert on it. If not, we'll create an alert on it. And we're going to go out and, yes, this one has an alert. And actually, the alert's been fired off 4 times. So if I go out here and I go to manage alerts, here it is. Oh, I didn't mean to do whatever that Excel thing he's doing. I didn't mean to do yet. And you'll see that this actually only has one alert called alert count of score. And if I click on this, this is going to go out and let me create a Power Automate flow based on this alert trigger being triggered. So anytime that I have more than 5 scores, in which case I have 13. So if I'd actually make it 14 and add it one more, it would actually go ahead and trigger. And what will happen is, in addition to sending email and saying, hey, your alert has triggered, you should go ahead and run this flow. So this is the flow that we were actually created in this. This UI has been around for about a year, or this trigger where we go out and initiate a flow from Power Automate. It's been around for a year. So it's not new, but it's still very powerful. And why do you use a flow if you could just do this? This is the important part. In my alert, I have a threshold of 14. And it doesn't matter if it's 1,014 or 14, this alert just gets triggered. It doesn't do different things. What I can do here is I can go ahead and let's actually go out and grab my alert. Come on. And you'll see, I think I just have the one created in this tenant. Yeah, so I just have one. For me, out of all the Microsoft tenant, I only have one alert. So that's all I see. And you'll notice it didn't actually ask me for the workspace. So it's actually enumerating my alerts. But the important part here is I'm actually just going to go ahead and grab it and put it into an email. Is that I can go out and do like what Anna was showing earlier. I can do conditions based on the value, right? So go back, and if you didn't watch Anna's presentation earlier this morning, I highly recommend it. So what you can do is actually, based on the value that get handed in, go out and make a branching. So if it is let's say less than 20. Obviously, you know it's more than 15 because that's where the alert gets fired. But if it's less than 20, I just want to send me email, just check, right? If it's more than 20, okay, there's probably something going on. So maybe we'll say less than 30, and I need to email Sharon as well. And if it's less than 100, I probably need to text them. There's something that's not right at this point, and what we need to do is let's go ahead and email them and then text them. And so these are different branches in our flow that doesn't seem to want to work for me right now. And of course that continues, but there's actually an alert threshold that gives you the value that caused the alert to happen. So these are very complementary of that. This always sends it with just the value, but what you can do with a flow is make branches based on that value. So we're not going to continue waiting for that one to come back. What we're going to do is let's go ahead and go back into that report, and I'll show you that brand new feature that I was just playing with a little while ago. So I think we were in the Dataverse report. Actually, before I do that, let's just make sure there's no other slides I wanted to cover. I don't think there was. Oh, there was one. We'll see if we have time. We'll come back to the other one, the Power BI tiles. We'll come back to that one. Because let me show you the new feature. I don't want to take that from you. That's actually why a lot of you have actually joined this presentation. And if we have time afterwards, I'll have, I think it's Jeff that came in early, and I apologize if I got your name right, and you can do a time check for me. So what we're going to do is go into our database report, and one of those tiles was called Power Automate. And let's see if I left it in a finished or an unfinished state. I plan on actually coming up here and resetting all these, so I'm in a bit of a, I don't know what state they're in. Power Automate. So let's see if it's in a finished state or an unfinished state. That's okay. If it's finished, you'll get to see what it looks like. It looks like it's not finished, so that's good. So in this scenario, same data set, same kind of story, but I've got all of these orders, and let's say that I only want to send the orders to the people who are late. And in terms, in this case, it's only one. It's Samsung Viper. Let's go ahead and deselect that and choose, I don't know, maybe if we choose Acer, and we'll let the people that had ordered Acers know that their order is going to be early. Because of course, every time you make an order, that's what happens. They always arrive early. And we just want to let them know that not only is it going to be early, it's going to be cheaper than expected. Hey, you're going to get a refund and it's going to be ahead of schedule, because that's how the world works. So what we're going to do is, imagine instead of 5, we had 100 of these. You wouldn't create a Power App and click the button that says send email, or I guess you could create a loop, but what you'd almost certainly do in that loop is you'd hand it to Power Automate. So now you're creating a Power App just to hand it to Power Automate. Now what the team have done is said, let's just pass the data set directly to Power Automate and do interesting things like send them email to let them know that their order is going to be cheaper and ahead of schedule. So let's go ahead and go to edit, yes. And some quick-eyed people have noticed that the trigger is already in Power Automate, but you need to have the visual to kind of make it work. And the visual's not quite ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say import from file, and I've got a build from Arnav. Remember I was talking about Arnav and Sujata. They give me a build. This one's about 8 days old. It's not real fresh. And where did I put this? I put it under Dataverse, and there it is. There's the new flow visual. You will not have to say import from file. You'll be able to get it directly from the store. You won't see this dialog box. So this is actually a kind of a build, and this is actually what it's going to look like. You can see that their authoring experience is gorgeous. They've done just a really, really good job. So what we're going to do is bring it. Oh, did you see what I did? I actually accidentally made my slicer a Power Automate flow button. See if we can undo that, because I want my slicer. All right, let's just, okay, there we go. So I'm sure I'm the only person that's ever done that. By adding the visual, I've actually kind of unhidden it. So here, let's go ahead and get rid of it. That's what's going to look like. We're going to add a brand new one. So we're going to go ahead and deselect all of our visuals. And I'm sure I'm the only person that's ever used Power BI that's accidentally changed the visual type by selecting it in the field well on accident. So I'm unique and special in that way. And what it does is just like Power Automate, it says, hey, what fields do you want to use? Because we're going to hand you those rows for that field. Just like we did before, we're going to go back in and we're going to pass in that order, those order details. So I definitely want email because I'm going to send them emails. Come on, email. And let's just pass in the order name. That's probably enough. We'll just make this one super simple. See if we can get to the Power BI tiles. And what we're going to do at this point is go to edit. And this is what I'm saying is that their experience is gorgeous. Where Power Automate took you into its own experience, this authoring experience, you're actually going to see that Power BI and Power Automate leaves you inside of Power BI. So hopefully this will be a little bit faster than this one. Because, oh, there, you can actually see it's rendering right now. And what we're going to see is we're going to see all the flows that have a trigger type of this flow button. And that's not what it's going to be called. That's what Chuck is calling it. It's going to have a proper name. But we want to create a brand new one because these are demos for you. So we're going to go out and choose Instant Cloud. And it's going to go ahead and set the right trigger to this flow button. Not the right name. And let's go ahead and call this one Amazing. Why is it that our services tend to slow down during live demos? Have you guys noticed that, or is it just me? Anyways, comment down below and be sure to subscribe. No.
Excellent. Yeah, they do always. I don't know why. Or maybe you just broke it.
And this one's going to be really easy. So what you're going to see right here is that it is actually going ahead and going to be initiated by a button press. So this is a type of Power BI button. And all I'm going to do is add an action of type email. So pretty easy. Eventually, it's going to work. It's probably tired as well. Maybe if I go back out and I open one, that might help. Let's see if we can actually edit this one. Because what I can do is we can go ahead and just bind the Nigeria flow to it, and actually you can see what it looks like. And by the way, this answers one of the questions I get all the time is that, do you have to go out and do your editing inside of this Power BI experience? And the answer is no, you do not have to do it. You can actually go ahead, create your flow outside of it, and as long as the on Power BI button click is the trigger, we will actually be able to bind to it. So let's go ahead and get rid of these, and actually we'll kind of start over. But you have to remember that this is the I think I have two Nigerian ones. This is the first one. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new step, and since this is in the Microsoft tenant, I have to use the Outlook send email. So we're going to send email. So this will be kind of fun because I think this is going to eventually render and you're actually going to see both experiences. I am so optimistic about that. Okay, so it looks like this one actually is maybe beat the other one. Okay, what we're going to do is send email. And like I said before, I can't use this one. This is actually a data protection policy, but I can use this one and send an email. Okay, so what we're going to do is, who do we want to send it to? We want to send it to all of those. In this use case, we're assuming they're all different email addresses. Yeah, I put it to mine because I didn't want to have a for loop that spun out of control and spam those people. So we're going to go to dynamic content. You're going to see I have two email addresses that got handed to me from this button click. One of which is the user that triggered the flow. So who was the person that logged into Power BI that that initiated this? So I could have actually sent them a piece of email. In this case, this is actually the column name that happens to have the name email. So we're going to go ahead and use that. But I don't know if you just saw that, and that was really subtle. Maybe I do that again. I should have actually pointed out what was happening, is that when I clicked it, it actually made it into a loop. And I should have pointed this out, but that's okay. So watch this. When I choose that dynamic content, you'll notice I'm not in a loop right now. Not in a loop. That's important. But the fact that I have a multiple rows, in this case it's like 5 or whatever the number was, it could be 500, and it's going to actually loop through all of those. And we're going to make this one very, very simple as well. We're just going to go out and say, order is early. And the message is boot cheaper too. Okay. Now when I save this, now there is an issue with the current builds, I think. Let me see if Arnav has fixed this, and that it won't actually bind to my button. So it looks like it's saved. I'm gonna go back to the report. And if I'm still in the editing experience, I know it didn't bind. So what we need to do is we just need to go back in here and need to bind it. You will not have to go back into it twice, but you'll actually see that we now have a Sharon's Amazing Event flow because it has the right trigger type. And when I hit apply this time, it's actually going to bind it to that button. So come on. And I kind of knew this was going to happen. So this, wait, oh, it's a little bit faster this time. Good. Here's Sharon's Amazing Event. I don't know why I'm getting two. I'll have to file that as a new issue. And I'm going to go ahead and go into it and hit apply. And that binds it. And this time what you should see is a very different experience. And we can actually go out and change the colors, change the text. So the button text is amazing demo. Apparently amazing spelled wrong for me. And the font color clearly needs to be pink. And there we go. And I can change the background color of the button, etc. And I can even change the size. It doesn't need to be that size. So I can make it look like not a button, right? I can make it look like an icon or a glyph or some sort. And anyways, I was gonna say, and using this with bookmarks, I can go out and change the state of my report and then pass in that data set to the flow. So let's go ahead and do what you're probably all wondering will work is, let's see if I click this, what will happen? What I want to do is, did I click on reading view? Yes. So here's the reading view, and it's going to go out and say triggering event. And if I go back into flow, or if you are watching really carefully down here, I should get 5 little pop-ups in my inbox, because since I'm emailing them to myself. And say, yeah, we're gonna leave this page. I think this is the Nigeria one, and we're gonna go in and look at this one, and we're gonna take a look at the runs, and you'll see that it succeeded, and it ran 13 seconds ago. And we go out and take a look at each of those runs, and I should have passed in the order itself, so you could actually see in the different orders, because those would have been passed in. In this case, it's the same email address each one, and I can go out and take a look at those, take a look at the raw input, and see that my email address was sent in. There we go. And this is actually who was sent in, and this is actually what was sent out. So this is actually a brand new feature that Harish on the Power Automate team is working with Sujata on the Power BI team, and I'm so looking forward to it. It's definitely one of my favorite demos right now, and it really does complement the Poweraps Visual as well, where you are creating a Powerapp just for the sake of initiating a flow. We can go directly to the flow. Okay, let's do a time check. How are we doing on time? Do I have time for another demo, or are we at I think it's lunchtime at this point for you guys in Cambridge, right?
Yeah, we're just getting there. You've got about another 10 minutes, so you've also got some questions. If Luke can pop in and ask you some questions.
Yes. One of the questions outstanding is, if the report in question is using a data set from SharePoint lists, does the refresh from the Power App also refresh the data from the SharePoint list as well?
So SharePoint lists, I'm not positive about. I have to go back and revisit my documentation. I think it uses a cloud refreshing, which actually happens every 2 hours automatically. You don't set up the gateway, and it will not. I do not believe it uses direct query. I'm pretty certain it does not use direct query. So what you would want to do is, and try and do this, I think it may work, is use Daniel's video that I mentioned. And what you do in your button is you actually issue that Power Automate task of a refresh. He does it directly from the button. He doesn't use Power Automate. Issue the refresh for the data set, and then issue the Power BI refresh and see if that works. No promises, but I know what's happening underneath the covers, and I'm guessing that would probably get you there, 70%. I wouldn't bet my life on it or my retirement, but yeah. So again, a lot of reason why what I did works the way it works and as well as it works is because it's direct query. SharePoint does not support direct query. Now, does it use an import schedule on the gateway? or the cloud refresh. I think it's a cloud refresh, and I think the Power Automate refresh will actually still initiate that. So great question, and I'm sorry I don't know the exact answer, but I certainly have given you enough to go out and investigate, see if you can make it better. Okay, Luke, another question?
Yeah, sure. So this is the only other outstanding question at the moment. So I'm going to read it out as it's written, and it might need some interpretation. So as is direct query, that means those refreshes don't count under the 8/day under the Power BI Pro license.
That's exactly right. The default refresh schedule for direct query is every 15 minutes. And what we're doing is we're actually going out and causing that to be, basically ad hoc, but they do not count as your refresh schedule for your gateway. That's right. So 8 refreshes in a shared data set, 48 in a premium capacity data set. Yeah, so great point. Thank you. Who was that, Luke, that brought that up?
That was, let me just double check. Fernando Carrera.
Oh, Fernando. Actually, Fernando comes and visits me regularly on the Vancouver user group. So early morning to you. Thank you for joining. Okay. I think you said that was it. And
we just did have one more coming, as you were saying. So can you set it so only certain users of a dashboard can see new products, new product forms, or create new products?
So what you're talking about is row level security. And what you do is you put on a query that goes out and puts users in groups. So the answer is yes, look up row level security, and that will actually get you going. Matter of fact, Adam Sexton on DynaCube. Adam Sexton is doing the Global Bootcamp for one of the locations. Him and Patrick are actually, they are doing a presentation. I think it's in an hour, so I don't know. It probably will not be on row level security because that one's not dated, but it's actually been a while. Okay, so I know I'm on the Poweraps team, and I probably should be more on Poweraps, but I want to get us to Poweraps, and I need to actually have a data set that's fairly well known. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the retail sample. So if you missed that, I went out and did get data, I chose samples, and I chose retail. And we're going to choose connect. And what I'm going to show now is I'm going to show in Power Apps, how do you put a Power BI tile and go out and pass the filter context. And what Daniel did in his video is not just pass the filter context, but actually make it updatable. In this case, this data set isn't getting updated, so we don't need to do that. But I certainly would want to pass the filter. For instance, if I am in Cambridge, I probably only want to see the orders in the UK versus the ones in the States. So that's the use case. So in here, I should have retail analysis dashboard, and I do. Okay, looks like I have a couple of them. So actually, they're all the same. It won't matter the fact I have 2 of them. I must have accidentally added 2. Or it looks like everything's coming in stereo right now, which is not a bad thing. Okay, and if I scroll down, there are 2 maps. Now, this demo used to be a lot better before the mixed reality guys added the addressing in their maps, because this was the easiest way to get a map in Power Apps. Now it is a great way of getting it, but not the only way. So we're going to go out and put this map visual inside of a Power App, and I only want to show orders from a particular state. So let's go ahead and let's not use that one. Let's actually create a brand new one. So we're going to go out and say new, and we're going to go out and say tablet layout. And Luke, is it with a L-U-C, the French spelling, or L-U-K or L-U-K-E?
L-U-K-E.
Okay, so this is going to be the Luke application when I save it. Okay, and
the Star Wars spelling, right?
Say again, Sharon?
Yeah, that's the Star Wars spelling of Luke.
Yes, the traditional. I work with Luc Lebel, and so I think of that as the French spelling. Okay, so what am I doing here? I don't know. I got a Power BI integration object. That's cool. I don't know how I got that. That's all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, and we're going to go out to charts, and we're going to go out and add a Power BI chart. And let's actually maybe add a couple of them. So we're going to go out and go out here, and remember the workspace is called Chuck's World or something like that. Chuck's World. I'm not very good at alphabetizing things. Oh, it's Chaz one, because we're looking at the workspace, not the environment. And I probably need to name them the same so I don't have to find them back and forth. And the one we're looking at is retail analysis. And what was that one called? That one was called this year's sales. Of course, I've got 4 or 5 called this year's sales. And that's kind of an on me because I actually helped create this data set back in the day, and I didn't know that we would need to disambiguate in Powerapps when I created it. So let's see if it's this one. And if not, we'll grab one of the other ones. No, wrong one. Okay, let's actually just grab another one. And I don't know, what do you think? Second from the bottom, Luke?
Yeah, let's go for that.
How about the bottom one? That one's the one that has no data in it. What's happened is these data sets have aged out. There we go. And there's I think it's a date filter context. Okay, so here we go. So now what we want to do is we want to go out and put a button over here. Let's actually add a couple buttons. We'll add 2. And let's say that it looks like this data set's got data in Delaware and North Carolina. So we'll actually put this one as all, and we'll actually just call this one North Carolina, or NC for North Carolina. Now, this requires you to know some OData syntax. I can't write OData syntax. I probably could, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and show you these steps, and I'm going to steal my own set of directions. So if I go out here and go to aka.ms, come on, type /PBI, standing for Power BI, in Powerapps, PBIINPA. Actually, I was going to say, let me grab that URL and I'll put it in the chat window, but there isn't a chat window in live. And what I'm going to do is, here are all the steps that you need to do to follow this. And I'm going to grab this one because I know that this is actually exactly what I need because I put it there just for Chuck. And by the way, these again are the directions. This is using the, what data set? It's like using the app in a day or some other data set, but the directions are the same. So what we're going to do here on this one is we need to do a set of variables. So let's go ahead and say set the Sharon variable equal to quote that mess. Okay, but I could concatenate it. What we're going to do is we're going to make it a little bit easier. I need it. Why do you not like it? Oh, because I'm missing a close part. Come on. Close. Yeah, there we go. Okay, what I need to do is actually give it the rest of that embed string so it works. Where do I get that from? Let's go ahead and go over here and go to title URL and get the rest of that embed string. So if you've ever gone to my courses on Power BI Embedded, this should look real familiar. I'm going to put that right in front of there. And I got way too many quotes. I got 4 or 5 quotes. By the way, I don't have a lot of pet peeves, but whoever created smart quotes earns a special place in my heart for a pet peeve. Why are you complaining? Now where? Do I have too many quotes at the end? Yeah, it's right here. This is the problem. Okay. Now I've got a variable that will contain it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and make 2 of these. And I'm going to make its tile URL equal to the Sharon variable that we just created. So we're going to go here and we're going to go out and say you are Sharon. Oh, it probably hasn't run. So what we need to do is run it. And when we click on this button here, what you should see is this tile, but with only the North Carolina states. And obviously what I meant to do here was have a reset the Sharon variable, but without that filter context. So these should look different. They look exactly the same. Why is that? We need to go out and take a look at that. Hang on. And territory equals NC. Looks like I'm missing a closed single. One more time. And actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and copy all of this. And we're going to put it in this button. And we're going to get rid of this stuff and go out and set it back to all. And, you know, we talk about low code. We're working on this space. This is not something that you're going to continue having to do with this, you know, OData syntax and hacking tile URLs. And with Daniel going out and issuing the refresh against the data set, I want to say, who's it? Richard Dickinson is actually working on this code right now. So if you guys know Richard, give him shouts of encouragement. He's looking to help out here. So now when I click on NC, What we should see is only NC here because I fixed my single quote that was missing. It looks far different. And when I click on all, what I should see is this one looks like this one. And of course, I could have actually gone out and had my Sharon variable, or set a Sharon 2 variable, and actually go ahead and issue the filter context so 22 million actually shows the right amount of only North Carolina. With that, Luke, and I meant to call this my Luke application, I didn't, I apologize. I think that takes me to the top of my time. And if I've got any more questions, I'm happy to take them.
So we've got one more question outstanding from Richard. Does the consumer of the app need a Power BI license, or does the Powerapp per app license cover it when you add a BI tile to the app?
Great question. And Richard, I wish the answer was, oh, go ahead and grab the Power Platform SKU, which includes this. There isn't one right now. There isn't one yet. And Charles Lamanna realizes that this could be better. He's working with Arun over on the Power BI team. Now, what the team doesn't know, so let me answer the question directly and re-ask it, is in doing this, do I need to have a Power BI license or a Power BI premium capacity that enables me to view those tiles? Or is that included in this Powerapp thing? And it is not included in Poweraps. Those licenses are entirely parallel. So in order to see tiles from Power BI, that's sharing, and you need licensed. And there isn't a license that includes both Power BI and Poweraps. E5 actually does include both. Then you get into what connectors you're using. But yes, it's feedback we've heard, and that this could be easier. Right now, those are parallel. You need to have licenses for both. Great question. I believe you said that was from Richard. Richard, thank you for asking that. Luke, any other questions?
No, there are no other outstanding questions at this time.
Okay. So
Awesome
again,
stuff, Charles. Thank you for that. That was really great.
I was going to say, in this homework, what are you going to do? You're going to actually, A, subscribe to Jess's channel. She has done a great video on this topic. And B, I'm sure you're already subscribed to Daniel Christian's channel. Go out and watch his video on how to use these tiles, but when I update the underlying data set, how to refresh them. So I'm going to hand it back to Sharon and Luke. I'm going to thank you very much for having me at Cambridge, and thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Absolute delight to see you there, and thank you for filling in early on your session. I have to say, I've never been a variable before, so absolutely thrilled. That's my win.
I've never been in almost that.
Don't forget to mention the QR code in the survey as well.
Oh yes, so we do have a QR code for you. Luke, do you want to bring it up on our deck? That allows you to go and win some swag. And that's from the Power Platform Bootcamp organisers. Like I say, they have 75 of these events running around the world. So jump on in and see if you can book your swag. So we're going to take a lunch break, 12 till 1.